This is Cook's Town. After going to Mesker Canyon and climbing Cook's Peak, I became real interested in this area. I went to the library and I found an old book that they wouldn't let you check out, but it told about this old ghost town up here, a mining camp called Cook's Town. How do you like my new mule? Her name's Brenda. Beautiful Brenda. I've never rode her before. This is going to be our debut trip. I'm not sure how it's going to work out. She looks like a nice mule. Beautiful Brenda. She don't have any respect for me yet, but she will have. And you got a real round back. Onward and upward. Come on, beautiful Brenda, let's go. In 1897, Cook's apparently hit its apogee of production with 12 active mines shipping 20 tons of concentrated ore a day from Florida Station at an estimated value of $600 per ton. Anglo miners earned $3 per day, but Mexican laborers drew only half that amount. There was also a daily stage and mail to Florida Station, a distance of 14 miles. It was also in 1897 that James Judson Hyatt moved to the Cook's Peak area. He was born in Mason County, Texas, and his family had moved to the vicinity of present-day Cloudcroft, New Mexico in 1882. Hyatt attended New Mexico State University at Las Cruces in his mid and late teens and partially offset his room and board tuition costs by taking care of Professor Hiram Hadley's team and buggy by driving the rig for him. He married Emma Holden in 1895, and in March 1897 they moved to a ranch northwest of Cook's Peak. By 1889, Upton Elwood McDaniel had already moved to Cook's, established a grocery store and saloon, and was operating the post office. On November 28, 1889, he married 30-year-old Winnie Ann Lee George, allegedly a distant cousin of Robert A. Lee. She had been previously married to William George in Missouri and had 3 children, Riley, James, and Lula, before divorcing him in 1886. I didn't know they divorced back in those days. Using 2 oxen and a covered wagon, she moved herself and 3 children from Llano, or Brownwood, Texas, to Deming in 1887, and thence to Cook's. She must have been a tough old gal. Her first daughter by McDaniel, Myrtle Murdy, was born at Cook's on September 26, 1890. Murdy was born with a crippled foot, and Newton Bolich of Deming fashioned special shoes for her. Other daughters were Millie, 1893, and Anna, 1898. 2 sons born in 1895 and 1897 died as infants. Although a small woman physically, Winnie was apparently very tough and especially for the time quite aggressive. After establishing her home boarding house and restaurant at Cook's about 1890, she reportedly won wagers that she could load ore buckets just as fast as the men could. Winnie and her eldest son Riley provided a certain social spice and economic stability to the community. Riley George, he disdained using the name Lawrence, was no less a character and entrepreneur than his mother. George had a small cabin next to the only Sweetwater spring high on the mountain, just below Cook's, and a string of 10 or 12 burros. He sold the spring water packed in 10-gallon casks that he strapped to either side of his animals. He acquired several mining claims with the proceeds of his business, but apparently never worked them. Instead, he raised goats and cattle and peddled his spring water and firewood. Sounds like my kind of guy. George reportedly did not get along well with some people, and maybe we are similar. George reportedly did not get along with some people, and in a shootout with the brothers Sam and Dink Tennell, killed Sam and his horse. This was most likely Samuel Tennell, a cowboy who by 1910 had married into the Gassaway family. In later years, George said he regretted killing the horse. I know I like that guy. Supposedly he was a good shot, but Elizabeth Hyatt noted that she once saw him shoot 3 times at a coyote without hitting it. Of course, a running coyote is much more difficult than a close-up of a man and a horse. George's quick resort to a gun to solve his problems later caused his family a great deal of anguish and landed him, at least temporarily, in serious trouble. By 1910, the McDaniel family had moved to Deming, where Winnie continued her boarding house business. After their daughter Millie's wedding to Otis Goodman on February 2nd, 1912, McDaniel apparently came home late and drunk and began abusing Winnie. The lively affray ended suddenly when Riley George shot his stepfather in the right side. McDaniel died the following day, and the temperance-oriented local newspaper laid the blame more on the ready availability of strong drink than on George. I climbed right to the top of that one. I think that town's right over this hill, I hope. The road split back there. I wasn't real sure which way to go. Me and Brenda have been having a few disagreements. She's testing me just a little bit. Anyway, she just has to learn that I don't put up with it. I don't know if a mule can learn that. The jurists must have agreed, and the editor, because later that year, on November 23rd, George was acquitted of the murder charge. One time, when George's mother was ill and he needed money, he sold his ex-bar brand cattle to Hideout. Hideout kept the cattle, branded the calves, and when George had recovered financially, sold the stock back to him for the original amount. George was reputed to have been the last person to leave Cook's when he moved to Deming in 1959, where he died in 1961 at the age of 84. Hyatt's bond of friendship with George apparently paid off, because after George died, Hyatt bought his Cook's Peak claims from George's half-sister Myrtie McDaniel Hewitt Moore for $1,000. The railroads that had brought so much prosperity to Deming and Cook's continued to fulfill the function of the old road through Cook's Canyon. On April 6, 1901, the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad Company advertised that for $25, an individual could ride from Deming to California. 2 years later, the price increased to $35. The railroad did not benefit everyone. Previously, it had eliminated scores of major and minor businesses, such as stage lines, freighting outfits, and small stores and hostelries along the old road. Now it provided a new danger to the rancher. The rail line was not fenced, and cattle frequently strayed onto the tracks at the wrong time. Several cattlemen offered to build the fences that they claimed the railroad was required to construct if the company would furnish the materials. One man hired an extra cowboy for $30 a month to ride the tracks, but still lost several head of cattle. Even though the initial heyday was over for Cook's, the community stabilized somewhat until about 1905. There was a mill, actually a dry concentrator, post office, grocery store, saloon, and boarding house, including a restaurant, which with private homes totaled at least 30 semi-permanent structures on the eastern slope of the mountain. In addition to the Poes, McDaniels, Grovers, Orrs, and other longtime residents of Cook's, there also were, or soon would be, the Gassaways, Onslaughts, and Ragsdales. An interesting phenomena occurred frequently during tunnel development at the mines. Caves would be encountered that contained not only high-grade ore, but beautiful formations as well. William Cotton reminisced about such a discovery, and we quote, "We were sinking on a narrow stringer when we broke into a broad open room, perhaps 50 feet across and 12 feet high, and in the center, as though it were the last dream of the gods, was a perfect tree rising from the floor of the cavern and extending to the roof, with limbs and foliage of the purest milky white, and penciled as delicately as a fern, and thrown over this, like a lovely bride, was a veil of the finest gossamer web, but so delicate was the child of the cavern that it could not stand the rude jostle of human work, and the first view of it was the only one. The first blast that was exploded after the room was opened crumbled it to dust, and only the memory of it remains." That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Hey, if you guys know what kind of car that is or what year or anything, put it in the comments down below, because I don't have any idea. I do know it's old, and I do know it's cool. We're going to wander around out here and take a look around, see what we can find. This is Cook's Town. Lots of old 55-gallon drums everywhere. That's like the 5th or 6th one I've seen. I wonder what they carried in them. Several residents in or around Cook's raised cattle or goats. Soon after Charles Gassaway married Mary Matilda Ragsdale Baker In the mid-1890s, they bought 3,000 mohair Angora goats. Other Cooks Peak area residents also raised goats and cattle, and the animals thrived on the grass of the mountain hillsides. A letter sent to the Deming newspaper near the end of 1902 referred to the vast herds of goats around the base of Cooks Peak. The presence of these animals in the rugged hills lured predators. The Deming paper reported that Charles Pace shot 2 large bobcats that were raiding his goat pen, located near the post office, and that 15-year-old Charles Grover had trapped a full-grown lynx in OK Canyon. Lacking a gun, Grover stoned the animal to death. Grover's younger brother was not so fortunate later that year. James, who was 12 years old at the time, saw 2 large mountain lions, but they escaped as he was also weaponless. The wild animals around Cooks Peak foothills were not the only enemies of the goats and their owners. In late March or April 1905, flock owners had already sheared their goats when a sudden vicious storm dumped 2 feet of snow on the range. The Grassaways lost 600 animals and the Ragsdales 400. Wow. I wonder what that was. There's not much left up here. I imagine this has all been picked through pretty good. I'll keep wandering around looking to see if I can find anything. The miners were frequently harassed by the Apaches, who prevented any meaningful development of the mineral resources, and highwaymen who continued to ply their trade in nearby Cooks Canyon. Apparently, one of the Apaches' main camps was located at the mouth of the defile later named Hadley Draw, about halfway between abandoned Fort Cummings and the future site of Cooks, not Cook. Oh, at Cooks. It is not surprising, therefore, that on at least one occasion Orr and a helper encountered 7 Apaches who prevented them from reaching Orr's works. They judiciously returned to Orr's ranch. Apparently frustrated by their ability to capitalize on the Cooks Peak mines, Orr and Arrington joined several other prospectors from the Pinos Altos area to examine mineral possibilities in the Floridas. On January 2, 1880, they were attacked by a vastly superior party of Apaches. That resulted in the death of Fulton and the loss of their mules and horses. Aided only by a few burros, they made a forced night march to Fort Cummings, covering over 30 miles in 16 hours, even though 4 of the men were slightly wounded. The situation became so desperate that Peter Stray was credited with being the only person to remain at the Cooks Peak camp from 1881 to 1882. The 1900 U.S. Census records 343 people living at Cookstown. This sizable population was in fact larger than that which was recorded for the more well-known town of Lake Valley. I think I'll go back and get my mule and go down through there. By all accounts, life within these camps was particularly brutal. While there were 7 brothels and as many as 25 saloons, there were no churches and only a single source of drinkable water. Cattle rustling was common, as was claim jumping. Disputes were settled without the aid of law enforcement, often with violent and horrific consequences. Blizzards could occur in the winter, and dust storms were not uncommon in the summer months. Making matters worse, there is circumstantial evidence that many of the residents suffered from the effects of lead poisoning. The decline of the Cooks Peak mining district was slow. As the ore bodies were played out and the price of silver declined, families began to move into nearby Deming. Major mining operations in the range ceased by 1943, but limited gold and silver prospecting continues to this day. Today, the remnants of Cookstown, as well as the thousands of mines which once operated in the Cooks mining district, are still visible upon the landscape. However, visitation to the range is strongly discouraged. Much of the land remains privately owned, and the abandoned mines are extremely dangerous. Be that as it may, the landscape of the Cooks Range remains an important piece of history. Got to lead to something. Probably a mine, I bet. Or a spring, a source of water. I guess it just leads to the bottom of the creek here. Probably at one time it had water. Or at different times of the year it has water in it. But it definitely was a trail leading from those little rock structures down into here. I never found nothing. Anyway, the dogs are trailing up through here, so I thought I'd better travel up through here and see what I can find. About 2:15. We'll let them keep going. As long as I can stay with them. This mule's about to give out on me. She's not in very good shape. She's a little bit on the stubborn side. We trailed that lion for another couple hours. It finally just petered out on us. Me and old Brenda, we didn't get along real well. I don't think she's going to be the mule for me. She's a little too lazy and just really doesn't step out like I want one to do. She's argumentative. It doesn't matter what I ask her to do, she doesn't want to do it. Some mules are like that. She's just no good out by herself. She's probably a fine mule if she's following another mule. But I need one that doesn't mind being alone with just me and the hounds.
I'll make you famous.
Sitting in my office and just killing time really and watching YouTube. And you know, on YouTube when you go to the home page they suggest videos to you. So they suggested some kind of Billy the Kid video, you know, and then something on the James Gang or something like that. And I clicked on a Billy the Kid video, and then I watched another one and it talked about Billy the Kid's hideout. And I looked at that and I thought, man, I've been there before. And I listened to him talk and everything, and it was a place they call Black Rock. Now, I never knew it called as Black Rock. We always called it Gorilla Rock because it looks like a big old gorilla's head. Anyway, I thought, man, you know, that's not too far from the house. I think in the morning I'll just load Big Agnes up, my mule, and of course I take some hounds. I don't ever go anywhere without taking some hounds. And I came up here to this old nasty desert kind of barren country and took off on Agnes pretty early. You have to get an early start this time of year because it gets so hot. Like right now it's probably, you know, almost 90 degrees. Anyway, I took off and I didn't want to go. I could have just rode right up the arroyo, and the arroyo is where the old road used to be. The road used to go from Fort Selden and it hit the Butterfield Trail, I guess, and then go to Silver City and Fort Cummings, I think it is. Anyway, so I got online, I got on my Onyx Maps. I use the Onyx Maps on my desktop, and you can create a route, and then you can share it on your smartphone, and you can follow that route. If you guys want to, Onyx sponsors me. You can use B100. There's a link down in the description, or that code, and you'll save, I think it's like 20%, and then I get a little kickback from that too. So Onyx Maps, I've been using it for years. I've used it since way before they came out online. I used it when they had a chip that you put in your when I just had a GPS and you put the chip in there. So I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cut across and I'm going to go up through. You know, if I was an outlaw and I was trying to get through here, I don't think I'd ride right down this main road. I'd probably cut across and go through the back country. So that's what I did. You know, took the hounds and everything. Sure enough, we got up there on top of a hill and they started trailing. It's probably a bobcat. And they couldn't finish out the track. And we circled back around to this place called Black Rock, or what I call Gorilla Rock. And supposedly, it's Billy the Kid's hideout. It's where Billy the Kid and whoever, another guy or whatever, had hid there, and they had wrote their names on the flat rock there. At least that's what the video I watched said. And they said, but over time that it had deteriorated and you couldn't see it anymore. So I went up there, and so this is the video, you know, watch it. I hope you enjoy it. When you get done, you know, hit that like button and subscribe and ring that bell or whatever you do. And yeah. The tallest mountain right over there. There's a saddle right this side of it. I think this trail goes up through there. I'm gonna take it and go through that saddle. And then I'll bear to the right. And I'll go through all those little ravines and circle back around. And I should hit that supposed hideout place. Good thing I found the gate. I don't think this fence has done any good for years and years. But this gate was put here for a reason. It's because there's a big old trail going right up through there. Somewhere. I'm gonna climb out right up through there. Somewhere on the other side of that big rock, I'll climb out and then circle back around. It would make sense to me that if I was an outlaw and the main road was down there and I was cutting across country heading to Lincoln or Fort Sumner or even to, you know, I don't know why he would go to the fort down here. It's called Fort Selden. If you're an outlaw, you don't want to go where the cavalry is or where the soldiers are. Now, if I was an outlaw and I was cutting through the country, or if I was just somebody cutting through the country, I sure wouldn't go this way to go to Mesilla. Mesilla, you'd turn and go back that direction. But this could absolutely be a shortcut to get across to Lincoln. And the main road is down there. I didn't want to ride the main road. Where's the fun in that? So anyway, we're going to circle back around this way and hit one of these canyons and come out. Now, that place where that cave is supposed to be, and they say it's mainly just an overhang. Billy the Kid's hideout. I forgot how deep these old canyons across through here could be. I looked at my Onyx maps and kind of made me a little route before I came. Of course, I've been through here before, but I should have paid attention to the grid lines. Those grid lines on the map tell you how deep these canyons are. I mean, it's not a problem. It just adds time and effort, really. Poor old Agnes. She has to going down and then climb back out the other side. There's probably like 3 or 4 of these I have to go through. Oh well. I hate those things. Killed one in my yard last night, right there next to the dog pens. Of course, it's a complete ecosystem. We feed the dogs, the mice come to get the extra dog food, the snakes come to get the mice. But, Cat, Pete! Apollo, no! Gotta break them of snakes. There it is, right there. That's pretty deep. It heads out right up here. I think it'd be better off just to go around the top of it, the head of it. Give old Agnes a break. Hit one of these little rims, you know, and just go down. I rode around that big canyon. I didn't want to go down and climb up it. Very top of that rock right there. That they call it Black Rock. I call it Gorilla Rock. Right there. Look at that green dirt. Wonder what that is, what makes that green. Huh. I think I'm gonna go down and up through there. Try to, because that black rock or gorilla rock that's the head of it right there. So I'll come out just about right. See if I can jump off of this edge down here somewhere. Let's pick our way right up through this rock pile here, Agnes. You can do that. Not sure how the best way to get through here. I could go down, and that would be real easy. Go down and crank around and come back up out of the arroyo. Right down through here. Down to the arroyo and back around. That's the rock right there. That's black rock. There it is. You can kind of see how it got the name Gorilla Rock. Looks like a big old gorilla's head right there. Ah. Now, see if I can find the cave. I think it's just an overhang. I don't think it's a cave, you know, like a cave that goes way back in there. Now, we do have a cave on the other side of the mountain over there. Back off that way. They call it Geronimo's Cave. And legend has it that the soldiers from Fort Selden chased Geronimo up into it and went back in, and he got into that cave, and they got in there and they never could find him. So they said, well, there's a way you can get through there and come out, and you come out on the other side of the big mountain. That's the legend. Now, I've been in that cave a little ways. But I'm not much on caves. I get a little claustrophobic sometimes. I like the wide open spaces. Anyway, we're going to see if we can find this little cave hole here and see if we can determine if any of that writing is still on the walls. I'm going to get off and climb around. See if I can get off without falling. I don't know if that's it. Sure don't look like much to me. That must be it. Hey, Pete. Sure don't look like much to me. If I was hiding out, this is where I would hide out. Oh, I bet this is it. I think there's some writing there. Yep. This is it. They said at one time there was writing. Maybe there was. I don't know why it would be gone now though. I mean, I could see this kind of being a little hideout place. Not that little cave down there. 'Cause then you'd have a lookout right up there and you could look down. See that arroyo right there is a big travel route from Silver City to Fort Selden. I don't see any riding though. I wish I could have found some riding. Oh well. I could see outlaws particularly, maybe not Billy the Kid. I'd have to see more proof than that. But I could see them camping back in here and using this kind of as a hideout or at least an overnight place. And then being able to have a person up there on that rock or back up there being able to watch that was a major thoroughfare, major road that went from Fort Selden to the Butterfield Trail to Silver City. Fort Cummings, I think is what they call it. Anyway, you got all this back up in here, you know, some protection from the weather. Nah, I don't know about that cave. I couldn't see myself staying in that thing. I'd rather find me a nice, more comfortable spot, but who knows. But see up there where those dogs are, that could be a lookout on that road. That's possible. It was worth coming and looking. I'd have to have more proof to know that, yeah, Billy Kid stayed here. Maybe there's proof out there. If there is, let me know. All right. It was a good day. Regulators, mount up. Let's ride. I can make you famous. I've had people ask me how I know how far I've gone in a day. I carry this, it's an Alpha, Garmin Alpha. It's from, I bought it from W Supply, Hunting Supply. I track my dogs. I can also train my dogs with it. It's got a tone and then some electricity. You can shock them a little bit. It's got a trip computer on it. So I just go to the trip computer and I reset the trip. So the trip odometer goes down to nothing. And it's got all these, you know, the elevation, and you can change a lot of this stuff. I reset that and I carry this. And then I can also check, if my dogs get out away from me, I can check and see where they're at. And then I carry it in this handy dandy leather deal. I'll put the name of the company that they sent me this in a dog lead. And I've been meaning to give them credit for it. They wanted me to just try it out. Now I like it. It's real handy. You know, you put it in there, and I tell you what, it latches down. You pull it over that little stub right there and snap it, and it ain't going anywhere. I carry a pack saddle with me now, so I can carry water. These hills I'm going to, I don't know where the water is, and it's pretty, they're deserty. I've been wanting to come here for a long time, and I haven't. It's kind of difficult to get to, but it's not far from the house. So I like to take a pack mule so I can carry water, and then I can also carry just little extra things and make, you know, some coffee and some stuff like that. And then also I can take a little bit of this extra weight off the back of my mule. And I like to take a pack mule. I like the, I don't know, the romance of it. One of these days, boom, I'm taking off and I'm just gonna keep on going. For first time, I'm only gonna go for about 5 or 6 days. I'm gonna ride right out of the house and I'm gonna go. And then if that works out and I kind of enjoy it, I'm gonna take some other trips up into the higher country. And then I'm gonna try to take a long ride. I'm gonna try to. I'm getting kind of old. Just do that down here in the flat country. I'm not really worried about having a wreck. I get up in rough stuff, I can just pull this tail, pop, 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 and I got it, and then I can ride and I don't have to worry about if something happens to this mule, she's gonna drag my mule off too. Should never tie hard and fast when you're packing. But I do it out here because I got flat country from here to there. I'm gonna go, oh boy, the mules are feeling good this morning. Agnes really wanted to walk. I'm gonna go right up on the other side of that mountain right there. I'm gonna go down and then come back around over the top and ride north as far as I have time. Look at this mule, she's really wanting to go. She's confused. She thinks she's going to the trailer or she thinks she's going back home, something. But she's confused, I'll guarantee you that. But that's okay. I like them to walk out like that. I came up here about 1980. Got to be about 85. A long time ago. I came up here on a horse I called Huggy. Hug Cat. He's a pretty nice mountain horse. And I brought a bunch of those stinking Airedales that I had. I had a bunch of them things. I inherited a kennel. And at one time I had 25 of those things. And I had read the book. Matter of fact, I'll put a link to it. Called Elliot Barker wrote it. Now he was up north in northern New Mexico, and it was called When the Dogs Bark Treed. And he used some Airedales and half Airedale and half hound. And he was a predator hunter and kind of the game manager on the Vermejo Ranch, which is a beautiful ranch in northern New Mexico. I think Pennzoil owns it, and I don't know who owns it now. Maybe Ted Turner, I don't know. They call it the Boy Scout Ranch. Anyway, he hunted lions and he did the predator control up there. And he caught lions with those an Airedale and some half Airedales. And of course I got my first Airedale when I was just a kid. And that was when my grandfather told me, he said, yeah, they hunt bears with those dogs. And I just went, oh, you can hunt bears with dogs? And I thought, man, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard of in my life. And so I got my first Airedale, and then later on I had another Airedale, and then I inherited all these Airedales because the guy that was raising them, it was called the Caring Heart Dog Foundation, and he supposedly had a heart attack. Honestly, he was a con man. He sold these dogs for a lot of money, and I'd bought a dog from him, and he called me and said, I'm gonna have to, I had a heart attack and I can't take care of these dogs. And as my dad would say, his politics weren't the same as the rest of ours.
Homosexual. Not funny, haha, funny queer. Mm-hmm.
He was probably gay, I guess, because he always had these Mexican guys from Mexico, and he would come bring them over. He was an epidemiologist is what his training was in. That's the kind of doctor he was. We called him Dr. Barber. Anyway, he'd bring these guys over and he would Americanize them. He'd teach them how to speak English. He was a real smart dude. He'd teach them how to speak English and then, make them dress properly. If you ever been down here in the Southwest, a lot of times you can tell a Mexican from on the other side of the border just by the way he dresses. Most of the time you can tell. But he would bring them over here and Americanize them, and he would work them. They would, clean house, cook, and take care of the dogs. And he had all these Airedales, and he sold them. It's called Caring Heart Dogs Foundation. And he had this deal where he would sell them, and then if you bought a dog from him, you always got free boarding and free grooming. But the deal was they would ask for tips. They'd say, well, you need to tip the boys. Well, the tips were typically more than you would get for boarding. I mean, that stinking jacket's wound up tighter than a 9-day clock. Anyway, I had bought a dog from him, and he had good dogs. He had imported them from Africa and where else? Germany. Had a big dog named Volkan that he imported from Germany. He was a good dog. And Bogan was from South Africa. Big, large type Airedales. Weighed, I think the males could go as high as 85, 90 pounds. And the females, were probably 60, 65 pounds. Anyway, he called me, he said, I had a heart attack. I can't take care of these dogs, and my boys are leaving me and this and that. He said, would you take over the kennel? And I had to think about it for a long time. And I said, all right, I'll take it over. So here I inherited 25 Airedales, all shapes and sizes. And I converted my horse barn. This was when I was married to my first wife too. And they also groomed them and that was another deal. They'd say, you get free grooming when you buy one of our dogs. We just ask for tips. Well, most of the people who bought these dogs were really wealthy people, and they would tip more than regular grooming would cost. So my ex-wife, she learned how to groom, and I trained some dogs. I even took on some off breeds, and I trained them, to heel and sit and come when they're called and not run through the door when you open the door, to wait. Just some basic stuff, nothing high end, just enough so these people could handle their dogs. Anyway, first thing I thought when I got all these Airedales, and I said, man, I want to hunt them. So I started bringing them out to hunt them. And I tried buying the scents from out of the back of Full Cry. I bought the bear scent, and I had some dogs that would trail and stuff, but shoot, I even went up to where I used to live off grid. I took them up there, and then I lost a female dog right up here where I'm at right now. I rode Huggy, my horse, and I brought Jen and a bunch of Airedales, and I came out here and I lost Jen for 2 weeks. Came home from work one day and walked out in the yard, and there was Jen laying in the yard right there she had lost a little bit of weight, but other than that, she was okay. And she was laying right in the front yard. I thought, dadgum, this is a long ways from where I used to live. But she made it home. They were smart. They weren't as they had a good nose, but they weren't as inclined to trail as these hounds are. And you need something in this country that really, really, really wants to trail, because the trailing conditions are terrible at best. But yeah, that's the story of my Airedales. And I kept him. I love my Airedales. And I had that big one from Germany. I called him Volcan. He traveled with me for years because I worked out of town. And I used to trim him, and we'd groom him, and I'd groom him with a mohawk, and he was an impressive looking dog. Now, he was 85 pounds and solid muscle and as obedient as a border collie or a poodle or a German shepherd. And I traveled all over the country with that dog when I was working, you know, and when I was doing that kind of work, I worked on gas lines, master meter systems that were, you know, they buy gas from a supplier in an apartment complex or something, or a mobile home park. They sell the gas back to the customer. They buy it and then resell it. Anyway, yeah, me and Volcan, we put on lots of miles. I used to go sleep on, I'd get tired, you know, and because I was driving so much, and I'd pull up on a rest area and sleep on a picnic table, and I could just lay my bag down on that table, and Volcan would lay down right by me, and anybody come by, he didn't have a mean bone in his body, I don't think. I mean, he was impressive looking and intimidating, but he would just sit there, and if they walked by me, he had this real low growl like that. Now I could sleep in peace and never worry about anybody bothering me or anything. But he died at the farm. That was the last Airedale I had, and I was real attached to him. And they had come and gone at a period in my life when I was going through a lot of turmoil with a divorce and everything. I had little kids and everything, and one of these days I'd like to get another one, but I just haven't been able to break. I got all these hounds, and they make good pets too. I don't take them in the house and stuff, and don't keep them with me all the time like I do with my Airedales. You know, the Airedales, you never had to worry much about them getting off on a track and leaving the country. These hounds, you never know. Speak of the devil. There's old Jack. I got to get them wore down a little bit. It's been a week I've been working. How does a guy balance work and hunting these hounds? I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna quit working. Well, this is Sugar. She's running with the big dogs today. Kind of. Oh, sorry, Agnes. She's kind of being bashful. I'm gonna try to go. I gotta go right up through that gap right up there, and then I gotta get on top and make a left and go around. Had to get off my mule because I had to cut across up there. This thing kind of bluffed out, and that slick rock. And what it is, it's a hard rock underneath with a little shell rock on top. And I don't care what anybody says. I've had my mules fall down in that stuff before, and I don't take any chances. That kind of stuff like that. See, it's got a hard shell underneath, and then it's got that loose rock on top. And I had the side hill back there. I didn't video it, I probably should have. And I had the side hill on it. Guarantee you, that's where they fall down, because I've had it happen. Did you find a deer leg? Are you proud of that? You are. Proud of that deer leg. Pretty good climb. These mules blow for a minute. I'm gonna go right out the top through there, and then turn left. always wonder who stacks those rocks up like that. I mean, I know. Oh, Agnes, easy girl. I know that, you know, when you're out in the forest and the trails, they mark a lot of the trails with what they call cairns, C-A-I-R-N, I believe. And so they make these little pyramids of rocks to mark the trail. But you'll be out here in the middle of nowhere. There's no trail here. This is just a dry arroyo. And somebody stacked those rocks right there for some reason. What does it mean? Does anybody know? Never seen so many doves either. Every single one of these little canyons that I've been in are just loaded with doves. I mean, like, there's 3, but I mean, sometimes 30, 40 of them jump up. You know, when they make there goes 3, 4, 5. And they make that thing with their wings when they fly. Honey, I'm home. Look at this old place. Still got those old steel window frames. Look at that. There's a little hole right up there to shoot your gun out of. Little fireplace in there with a mantle. Man, that thing was a regular mansion, wasn't it? Look at that. Oh, they did that just here lately. Big wide door on this side, little skinny door on the other side. Look at those old metal window frames. A lot of trash. Old barrels. Wonder what they did here. I'm always curious about stuff like that. Pipes going into the fireplace. Pretty cool stuff. Sugar. There's sugar. Let's see the stats. 14.62 miles. 8 hours and 36 minutes. It's 4:15 right now. Elevation here is 4,460 feet. What do you say? It's a good day. I'm tired. I'm kind of out of shape for doing this. You guys want in? All right.